Welcome to Messier, the podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs who want to launch and grow a successful business from day one. I'm your host, Maddie Kelly, and each week I sit down with founders who have been there, done that. We dive into the mindset, strategies, and practical tools you need to turn your vision into a reality. So let's get to work. Hey guys, welcome back to Messier. Today's conversation is about the uncomfortable truths of entrepreneurship, something every early stage founder needs to get familiar with ASAP. I'm sitting down with Irene Saliendra, a serial founder who's built across multiple industries from sustainable fashion to women's health tech and now runs a company called Digital Flow. So many founder stories get told in hindsight. But when you're in it, the reality is a lot messier. I experienced this myself when starting a company. You're putting yourself in rooms where you feel underqualified. You're figuring out co-founder dynamics, equity structures, accelerators, and fundraising, often for the first time. And sometimes you're doing all of that while still trying to hold down a job, pay bills, and convince people your idea is even worth believing in. I'm actually still doing this. So it's really refreshing to sit down with Irene and talk about what it takes to move before you feel ready. Irene is sharing tips for validating your idea, how to ask better questions instead of just pitching harder, and all of the unsexy and often awkward motions you need to put in place to have healthy co-founder relationships. We also unpack accelerators and funding. I imagine these things are very top of mind for any founder in the early stages, as it was for me. So I really had Irene dive deep. You'll learn when they're useful and when they're not, and what they're actually designed to do. But one of the most powerful takeaways from this conversation is something deeper. Building a company doesn't just create businesses. Those can come and go. But what entrepreneurship really builds is self-trust. And once you've navigated uncertainty enough times, you start to realize that no matter what happens next, you know how to begin again. And that's the kind of confidence no one can take away from you. If you want an honest look at what early stage entrepreneurship actually feels like, keep listening. Because sticking through the uncomfortable parts of the journey is often exactly what changes you. Irene, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to hear about your experience and have you walk the people through what you've been through, because I think you just have so much amazing insight to share, especially keeping it real for those aspiring entrepreneurs or other early stage founders who happen to be in a similar spot and are just looking to feel seen and heard. So I would love for you to kind of just give a quick intro into your career as an entrepreneur.
Okay, well, I'm so excited to be here. Right now, I am currently the CEO and founder of an organization called Digital Flow. We help small to medium growing companies enhance their sales processes and their digital tools to streamline and be able to forecast revenue effectively. In the past, I've actually been a founder of two other businesses. One right out the gate in university that was actually a clothing line that I was really passionate about, a sustainable clothing line. And then my other company was a tech startup looking at the lens of women's wellness and building a mobile app for women to get better access to care.
Fabulous. As a marketing nerd myself, I would love for you to just also talk a little bit more about what you're currently working on, just because I'm that is literally what I do every day. I'm a campaign manager for my 9-to-5 work. So I live and breathe in HubSpot and trying to make sure that we have leads and working with our sales team because we're B2B SaaS. So I'm just generally curious.
So this is such a great question because I could genuinely talk about CRM management for days. And I pretty much probably have. Definitely. Everything that we do is making sure that your systems are working for you. It's not just a system that you're working with. It's a mirror of your own processes. And I think that's the hardest part that a lot of businesses face because they open the box of a tool, let's say HubSpot, because you're working with it, and they open the box and they're like, okay, I want to get right into campaigns. I want to get right into sending out this email campaign or doing the ads or even just social media out of HubSpot. But what a lot of folks don't realize, there's structural work that needs to go into that needs to reflect the way the business acts in order for you to actually have actionable data that's trackable and you can actually forecast it for future reference. And I think that's the part, it's the boring part that people don't see, because I actually admire, Maddie, the people that do the marketing campaigns, because that's an area of my brain that just doesn't work as smooth. But all the nerdy back end stuff, kind of like the deal flows, the pipelines, all the fun like KPI buzzwords, that kind of jargon that happens in the background, that's my expertise. And that's what I can probably talk on forever.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Like, I think that's so cool because, like, the more that I've been working with it, like with HubSpot as a tool, like, it's not inherently complicated. What is the business language and like how each individual business uses it. So, like, I could go into somebody else, like another business's HubSpot, and like know where to find reporting, know where to find leads, but like how you categorize that through as it moves through like the sales funnel is inherently unique across all companies. So it's like a very complicated space, especially if you're like trying to figure it out. Like I try to help my new coworkers and they're like, I don't know where to find anything in HubSpot. And I'm like, it took me literally like a year to understand it. And even now, like, I still don't. So anyway, it was a quick tangent because I was just like really curious because it's something I live and breathe in every day. And I know it's like such a pain in the ass to work with. Like it is really
kudos to you for being in the tool day in and day out, because that's probably the number one struggle that a lot of companies I face do, is like we have the tool and we have the people, they just need to be in the tool. And it's like kudos to you for sticking it out and doing it, because that's usually like a large hurdle that a lot of organizations, is just like tool adoption. And then getting the tool, once you've adopted the tool, getting the tool to actually look like the way you work is probably the second hard part, because you're like, it's speaking in another language that I don't normally speak, but you just have to try to, it's almost like system translating. So I do that a lot with my clients where I'm like, okay, this is an SQL, this is a sales qualified lead, but in your world, it's just a client. So like making those connections of what that could look like in their reality of what they've told me their sales process is, and then like what the system says it is, and then working with it in that way. But kudos to you. That's awesome.
And like social is such a black box, like to be able to actually translate whether, because it's not like you're getting leads off of social media. Like it's not like a LinkedIn follower is then like hitting us up to be like, hey, I want to book a meeting with your sales team. Like that's literally never happened. I will eat my hat on the day that it happens, but I'm still expected to demonstrate like how in our increase in our follower account like leads to more pipeline, which like
let me just magically, whimsically make these numbers match and correlate. You're welcome.
I literally like my CFO will be like, how does that translate? And I'm gonna literally have to make I honest to God don't know the answer.
I'm about to make some magic for you and make a new number and a new KPI just for this correlation. You're welcome.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Well, it seems like you have like you're really passionate about like women's wellness and tech, like between all three of those things, I feel like that's the through line. Like with the fashion company, it's like the tech of sustainable materials, like, you know, with the women's wellness and tech, like that's literally the intersection. And then you also have like this technical systems side of you. So I'm curious to know, like for each of your experiences, like if you could take a step back for aspiring entrepreneurs listening, like what are the first real steps that you take to turn passion into like action or a business?
Oh, that's such a good question. And people are probably not going to like it, but I'm going to keep it real because we always keep it real. But you're going to get uncomfortable. You need to get uncomfortable and you need to put yourselves where you wouldn't naturally put yourself. Because when you're starting a new idea, naturally, you're not in the space. So when I started actually, it was a sustainable company that was doing bathing suits. So when I started that company, I wasn't in the fashion industry. I wasn't in this sustainable ecosystem. I wasn't anywhere near manufacturing, but I put myself in spaces that I knew would relate to what I'm building. Same thing with the tech company. I put myself in spaces where I know women that adore wellness want to be in. I put myself in awkward tech spaces that nobody looks like me. And then even with digital flow, I put myself in even more tech spaces with even more people that don't look like me because I need to grow my business. And that's always the first step, is recognizing what industry do I want to play in, and where does that industry currently sits and hangs out in? Because as an entrepreneur, you have the idea, it's brilliant, you're probably rocking it, but the first thing you need to do is actually go talk to the industry. And that's the most uncomfortable thing, because you're facing your imposter syndrome. You don't think you belong, you don't have something to provide yet. But yet that is still a value in itself, being able to put yourselves in uncomfortable situations. So that's
Yeah,
what
it's like, no, I think that's such a great call out. Like, two things that I want to bring out of that. It's like, you have to get over the discomfort of like feeling like you don't know what you're talking about. And I think to your point, like you almost turn that into a superpower where you use your curiosity and faith to open doors for you. And so
definitely.
like when you're starting to get into a new space, like, are you just DMing people that you don't know to like ask some questions? And then like, how does that work where you're like learning and validating your idea?
Oh, that's so good. So if anyone listening hasn't yet read The Mom Test, I would say pick the book up. It's on Amazon Prime, Amazon Read.
Mhm.
So one of the places that you can listen to a book.
I'll link it below too in the show notes.
Yes, awesome. You're sweet. But the whole point of the book is being able to ask unbiased questions. And so, as an individual, we naturally have a bias, whatever that bias is. And as a founder, we naturally want to hear someone say that our idea is good. And
Mm.
it's proven that if me and you never met, if we don't know each other, and I came up to you and I was like, Maddie, I have a great idea. It's this, and this, and I want to do this. Naturally, as humans, you would look at me and be like, that's a good idea. Great. But it could be a terrible idea. It could be one that doesn't work at all. But just by
Mm.
human psychology, we are programmed to agree with the person in front of us. But if we come to the conversation with unbiased questions, with that curiosity, like you said, and the willingness to learn and be open for what they say, that's what's really going to get you to validate your product, because you're hearing them say their authentic buying habits. Because when you're
Mm.
pressing into an unbiased question, you're letting that person expose what really happens when they're making a buying decision, when they're engaging with your ideal industry, when they're playing around with the process that you want to kind of also be aligned with. They are telling you how they naturally buy. And so then you've been given the roadmap of how to attract them as a consumer. And that then goes into how then to make the product that they would be interested in actually using. And that system works a whole lot better than you being like, I just made this. Would you buy it? Because everyone, like even your mom's going to be like, yeah, I would buy that. But if she saw an advertising with it and you weren't connected, would she still buy it? So it's
I
that
mean,
kind of also.
yeah, and like data shows like people need, at least 6 to 7 touches or like seeing something
Mhm.
6 to 7 times before they're
Yeah.
even willing to like look at your website. So
Yeah.
it's like, people will tell you what you want to hear to your face, but behind the scenes, like I think
Yeah.
I would argue almost like most people are pretty skeptical and
100%.
not inherently gonna like make the leap. So
Mhm.
as to your point, I think it's like as close as you can get to understanding their truth. And it's also, I think, just like a never ending experience as a founder. Like digging into a problem space is literally your entire job forever. Even as the
Constantly.
company scales, like your problem space probably just expands.
Yeah.
And so like it's literally never ending.
Well, you go from validating the problem to validating the market, then validating the product. And then once you validated the product, then you usually go to launch or something like that. And you're like, oh, this is great. But no, now you're just validating customer success and you're validating customer retention and then feature release. So that validation, you're right, it doesn't end. It just evolves to then validating a different aspect of your business when it comes to that point.
Yeah. And I think also so much of that experience is just like working with people.
Yeah.
And I think like so many founders, I say this all the time, like they don't go into it to be a leader. Most of the time they
Mm-hmm.
have a problem that they want to solve for themselves that they've like personally had
Mm-hmm.
experience with. And, I know a lot of, especially like tech founders who, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not going to overgeneralize here because I'm sure a lot of them do it for ego, but I've also met a lot that are more like engineers or like data scientists,
Oh,
who
yeah.
had interest in being like a people person, but that's a requirement of the job as a CEO. And so I'm curious about your experience. Like, you've worked in so many different industries. How have you navigated working with staff, working with co-founders, working with consultants, like all of that stuff?
It's a lot about patience and value exchange. So I had a mentor one time tell me that everyone is in it for something. Everyone's in it for some kind of transaction. Even if they say like, "Hey, I'm here to support you." What does that support then look like on their end? And
Mm-hmm.
then what does that mean for you? Everyone has some kind of give and take. And once you understand that every time there's a transaction, every time there's a relationship, there's a give and take. Any partnership, even a marriage relationship, we can take it that far. And then in building a team, it becomes less about you and then more of the team. And especially as a founder, the hardest part is getting people on your team. And I was very fortunate enough to have 14 people on my team while I was building my tech startup. And I'm so proud of that. But in that, I quickly shifted the conversation from look what I'm doing, look what I'm excelling, to look what we're doing, look what we're excelling. Because I recognize that the people on my team are there because they want to represent Fementity. So they want to be acknowledged and valued for the brilliance that they're bringing to the team. And so to do that, I then have to step out of the limelight to give them some space to also shine. And I think even when you're dealing with co-founders and staff, like, it's all about respect. It's about recognizing you have done an amazing job. And I'm very transparent with my team when I say, I know what I'm good at, and I also know what I'm not good at. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I see someone stepping up in their brilliance and they're owning it, I give them so much adoration and compliments, maybe too much. But I also feel like in this industry, in this day and age, we're not complimenting or appreciating people enough. And so when I saw my team or a teammate really just like overcame a roadblock, or they just like battled through whatever bug that we were facing or whatever marketing issue that we had, and they launched it and they did great, I will give them that extra gratitude and share them my extra appreciation because, yeah, you killed that. You did something that I could have never done myself. And I recognize that and I'm appreciating and respecting that. And that's really at the bare bones. Like, people want trust, people want respect, and there's always a value exchange. And once you kind of accept that in every aspect of your life, you're like, okay, people are easy. Let's just see where our common ground is.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because something that my boss at my 9 to 5 talks about all the time is that she says incentive begets behavior. So like the way that she thinks about setting up job descriptions and compensation and like how that actually, like she almost like takes the role down to like its fundamentals, like what is this person
Mm-hmm.
doing for the company, and then
Mm-hmm.
like making sure that if that's what we want them to be doing, to incentivize them accordingly.
Yeah.
And I think that this is so fascinating, because I especially think about it from like navigating co-founders. Like, I think you and I both have experienced navigating
Mm-hmm.
challenging co-founder relationships, and like my biggest takeaway was that even though we thought we had like narrowed scope and been like, these are the things that we are responsible for, like this is where we're at in life, especially at early stages when you're probably working other jobs or you have other,
Yeah.
responsibilities that you're working towards, and like having to build something on the side, like you would think that like where we were at, like looking back, like I thought that we had clearly labeled everything out and like,
Oh, yeah.
things were set, but it didn't end up like that. And so like it makes me look back on the experience and think, okay, well, like how could we have done that better? And like
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it from that perspective of like incentive begets behavior, like perhaps we
Mm-hmm.
hadn't done and structured it in a way that was like clearly saying like, if you want to incentivize somebody to do their job really well,
Oh, yeah.
I think the clearest example of this is from a sales perspective. If you have like, your objective as a salesperson is to close business, like you want to close one. So like you should be incentivized then to close business. Like you shouldn't incentivize them to like have a bunch of meetings, because that doesn't incentivize closed business. That incentivizes sales associates to just like put a shitload of dumb, meaningless
Lead.
meetings on the calendar.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Yeah.
And so like I think that as founders, like we need to apply that to, especially like bottom line, foundationally, like co-founder relationships need to be so freaking clear. And like, I don't know if I know how to do this very well. Like, I'd love to hear from your experience, like how you guys did that. And like, maybe, you know, you could provide some insight on like what you think should be done better, or like what a best practice for that would look like. Because I'm
Oh,
curious.
that's so good. So I'll talk on it like from a staff, I don't want to say staff, but like a teammate. I like saying teammate. A teammate perspective and then like a co-founder perspective. From a teammate perspective, one thing that I always started the conversation with is a very clear scope of work with like, this is what I expect you to do. Here's my commitment level. And everything after that, I was just like, bonus, that's amazing. Like, I appreciate you. And then here's what I expect deliverables. So it always started there. And then from there, and everyone on my team, I've always asked this, I always say, what brings you joy? Like, what makes you as a person keep wanting to do the deliverables, keep wanting to do the scope of work, whether it's for Fementity or for someone else? What drives you or what motivates you? And that's how then I associate incentive to them is, okay, you want to do the scope of work and you're telling me that you find joy in this particular way. Great. Let me align how I can support you as a leader so you can keep doing an amazing job and be incentivized and feel like you're getting something out of this value exchange that I'm doing with you. For a co-founder, also a value exchange, but a lot more risky and requires a lot more due diligence. And something that a mentor told me recently is have a shareholder agreement that's as diligent and detailed as a prenuptial agreement. And it feels so awkward and uncomfortable. Again, a lot of the founder journey is uncomfortability, and I'll be so real in saying this is probably the most uncomfortable because when you're facing the barrel and maybe you don't like that person at the end of the day, you want to make sure there's an agreement set by you and that person that agrees like, this is how we're going to come to an agreement, or this is how we're going to split assets. And that makes it so clean and clear. And then you also know for yourself, what leverage do I have and what incentives do I have in staying in this business? Because as a co-founder, we're not getting paid. Let's just call a spade a spade. No one's making money when you're an early stage co-founder. And unless you have connections to a Kardashian or a Gates, it's going to be a couple of years before we see a profitable salary for yourself before the business. And so in that, recognize like, you're doing this with passion. Not every day is going to be blissful and easy and wonderful. And so there's going to be moments where it's not going to be great. And so in those moments of difficult decisions and low valleys, what does that partnership look like? Yeah. What does those non-negotiables look like for yourself to keep being incentivized to work for free? And then for me, I also recognize that when I started my business to where I left my business, my legal and financial literacy just wasn't as strong as it was today. And the irony of being a founder is we as humans deserve time to make a decision that's best for us. But the society that we live in thrives when you can make quick decisions and move. And when it comes to shareholders, you want to really make sure you're thinking about what's best for you 5 years down the road. Even if it takes an extra 5 weeks to figure out what that is, it's better that you have a clear piece of paper between you two when you're really moving into whatever roles that you have, rather than, okay, we're just going to like throw our names, sign up for the register, we'll be director, and we'll figure it out as it goes. Because I promise you, once you're in the heat of the moment, you're not looking back at your shareholders agreement. You're not referring back and thinking, oh, wait, what did I sign again? No. You're in the, oh my gosh, I need to figure out this pitch competition in like 24 hours. That's what you're focused on. And so getting that and solidifying that before you really start doing this partnership, it's essentially like, you know, you get a prenup before marriage. You would get a shareholder agreement before you start the business. And if that takes you a little longer, that's one thing I would do different is stop and pause and take some time to actually review what are my rights as a shareholder and what is my incentive as a business partner to still participate in this activity. So that would be me.
I think it's so clear. Like, I'm really glad that you're bringing this up because I think even in my experience, like we saw like, that whole process of forming an LLC or like forming an S corp or a C corp, like, and then like working through the shareholders agreement is like almost a formality. And it was like a situation where we in the moment we were like, of course, like we have each other's best interest in mind, where we love the job, like we want to build this, it's all the passion and like it's
you
the
love the
vibe.
mission, you love the vision,
and it's vibes and like all seems well. And then, but like what I just would caution every single person listening, like to really, to your point, like take the time to research and understand what this means and like really internalize that, because I think if things start to deteriorate, like that will be used against you. And if you, for example, like if you're in a co-founder relationship and your shares are not like evenly divided, that needs to be understood why. Like if that's because you cannot provide the same level of commitment, it makes total sense. But like if it's not evenly divided, but you guys are working even amounts, like that, there's a clear like imbalance of power. And one of my favorite books of all time is called The Courage to Be Disliked. And
I love that book.
It's so good, right? Like really altered my brain chemistry. And it's because like what I took away from that was that you cannot have an imbalance of power when it comes to relationships. Like it even talks about like you and your boss at work are not on uneven playing grounds. Like they might have more like they might have a higher title than you, but that does not, to your point, like mean that you deserve less respect.
Absolutely.
And so I highly recommend that book on top of the one that you suggested earlier for founders, because like, and especially like The Courage to Be Disliked, like you're going to have, to your point, like all of these uncomfortable conversations. And I can imagine that comes out when you're like working with investors, like working with like accelerator programs, which like I know you have a lot of experience on. So I'd also love for you to talk about that too.
Definitely. And that's a good point too with investors. Like early on, talk about what does success look like for you? Everyone has a different version. Some people are chasing that unicorn dream. Some people are chasing stability and just want to be a business owner and just want to have a side hustle. And that's okay too. But clarify what success means for both of you, because if you're someone that you know, you want to chase the millions, you want to do the 10x growth, do that, be own that. But if you're working with a partner that's just like, this is my side hustle, then that's immediately an imbalance. Like that's immediately gonna feel like a strain on your relationship. And then also talk about, if there is people that come on board, are we willing to share equity for leaders, or do we have an employment stock options pool? What does that look like? What does sharing ownership look like? Or are you even going to invest? And if you do get an investor, what does that process look like? Are you going to exit, or do you want to stay leaders in the company? Because a lot of times, and this is like the number one statistic, investors will invest in the founder, not the business. Because of course, the business is not probably running, but they believe in the founder. So think of those are all things to think about. Yeah.
And like the business is going to change. Like as you go through the process, like your product evolves, the market evolves, like we talked about earlier, that all changes. And so what in theory shouldn't change is the founder. Like they will grow as a human being, but your point, like what they're investing in is they believe in you to get the job done, whatever that looks like.
Through and through. They want to see, is this person going to stay for the 10 years of uncomfortability to then have a really positive exit? And then from there, it's like, okay, what does that look like too? And you can even dive as deep as like, I'm here for the grind of it, but the moment we get investment, I'm out. Or maybe it's a conversation of like, I actually don't want to go through investment. I just want to bootstrap and live on a sustainable playing field. And that's okay too. But I would also encourage folks to have a partnership audit every 6 months where you sit down and obviously you reflect on all the brilliant things that you've done, but you also look internally, because it doesn't change. Like there's no method or repetition or practice that says you can't change your shareholder agreement. You can change them as many times as you want. You can add new directors. And so I would say every 6 months, look at your shareholder agreement. Ask yourselves honestly, is this even still relevant? Or should we go ahead and change it? Because a lot in 6 months in a startup life, that's like 3 years. Like it feels like so long. And like you've gone through probably like 8 different mental breakdowns and like For me, I went through like 4 different accelerators in 3 months. And so a lot can change in a business in 6 months. And so giving yourself that accountability to be like, let's look at each other honestly and see if this is still a fit. And having that be a structure in your business is also a comforting feeling to you too. Like you want to do what's protecting for you and your soul while you're engaging in this really amazing adventure.
You have to. Like, I'm obsessed with entrepreneurialism because it's a microcosm for our human experience. Like,
yes.
you, as a person, like, you have to do what's best for you.
Mm-hmm.
And as I get older, like, the more prevalent this becomes. Like,
yes,
you came into this world, you are leaving this world by yourself. You have to be, if you want to be a good friend, if you want to be a good partner, if you want to be a good business person, you have to be good with yourself, which means that, like, you need to prioritize your health, your mental health. Like, all of these things have to come first so you can serve the world to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
And that means that you need to cover your ass at every step. And, like, I think something unsexy to early stage entrepreneurs is, like, taking fucking notes. Like, have to have
not
everything.
just Firefly.
Yeah, like, there needs to be record. Like, things need to be in writing because, like, if shit hits the fan, you have to cover your ass.
Yeah.
And also, like, it's good, you know, that way it allows you. There's a lot of other reasons why, like, keeping records is important because then, like, it helps you onboard new hires faster instead of, like, you having to just, like, mental dump all of this information that's in your head. So you can help them, like, help themselves. Like, there's a million other reasons, but, like, I just would encourage, like, I hear this all the time from successful founders, like, to have a system of record and, like, even to help with that, like, 6-month check-in, you know, like, if you weren't taking notes during those 6 months, like, what are you going to come to bring to the table? Like, if you don't have things to talk about, especially things that, like, you know, might seem small in the moment, it could have just been like them breaking a boundary at, like, 6 p.m. when you're supposed to be off, you know, like, you need to remember that stuff, like, write it down and be like, hey, this is stepping a boundary for me. I'm off after this time. Like, either, like, I need to turn off my notifications or, like, just schedule your messages or, like, don't call me at 6 p.m. And, like, you need to be able to remember that to bring it up because 6 months later, you probably are going to forget.
Yeah. And that's all part of that relationship building. Like, you would want a healthy dynamic between you and your coworker or your boss and yourself, or like 2 division managers. It's the same thing as like 2 co-founders. We're still human and we still make mistake, but we're still able to hold each other accountable. And that space to be able to hold each other accountable is what will make or break a co-founding relationship.
Yeah. Okay, I want to pivot really quickly and talk about accelerators because this is something that, like, I feel like people see them as this, like, magical experience where, like, it's like a Y Combinator moment where you go in and, like, Y Combinator tells you how to run your business, and then, like, you leave and all of a sudden you have a line of, you know, investors out the door waiting to tell you how great your idea is and that you're a genius. And so I'm curious to know, like, if you could shed some reality on what an accelerator is, when it's a good idea versus, like, maybe when you don't need it, and if you don't need it at all.
Oh, that's so good. An accelerator is essentially this condensed program of business knowledge. Sometimes it's positioned in a very particular part of business, usually around investment. There's a lot of accelerators geared towards investment because it's such a insane part of the industry, really. Some are very much focused on marketing, some are focused on business development, but it's essentially to do what it says, accelerate an area of growth for your business to get to the next milestone. And someone told me that's actually not too long ago, and it was, as much as a founder thinks they need an accelerator, the accelerators need founders. And that's something that I realized there will always be another cohort. There will always be another accelerator. And I think there was a statistic of like 60 million startups are built every single year. And of that, I think 2% of that actually gets VC funding and becomes a unicorn. And so if you think about that, that's a really small percentage.
Holy shit.
Right? But then all of these accelerators are helping you to try to become that 2%. And the reality is these accelerators are pushing you and essentially creating that diamond from sand motion where you are under high pressure, incentivized to move your business along for the end result of maybe pitching in front of an investor or pitching in front of your ideal customer profile and then getting some kind of positive momentum outcome from your business. The hard truth, will you get funding? 9 times out of 10, no. It's just no, you won't get funding. A lot of these accelerators, they're there to provide you mentorship, content. They're there to do, you have to pay some of them. Some of the accelerators you have to pay to be part of it. The ones I contributed to, I did not, because your girls got all the bills we got to pay for.
Right.
But in that, you will get community. That's probably, if you're a founder that is building by yourself, the community that you get from accelerators is one that I think is unmatched, because then you get put in this beautiful area of like other people doing lots of hard stuff and you're just trying to figure it out along with them. And that is a community feeling that, especially for solo founders, or even just for myself, I had a co-founder, but I felt like a solo founder. And it found there was that you see each other in each other's struggle and you're rallying for each other. And like when someone just put out a wait list, you're all on that wait list now and you all get the emails. Like, it's that kind of camaraderie that really moves you forward. And I think if we're talking about the positives of accelerators, those founder communities that generate from them, beautiful. I think they're brilliant. I think if you need network, an accelerator is definitely a good opportunity. If you don't have business acumen or you didn't take a business course, if you're a technical founder, I would say lean into the accelerators for the business content, because one, it's you probably never heard of something like a sales pipeline, like what the acronyms that we were using, like guys, SQLs, MQLs, like you probably never heard of those words before. You don't know what that means. So it would be good for you to dive yourself into that kind of area. For myself, what I really lean to is the investment accelerators, because that's just a whole other realm of other jargon that wasn't actually taught in business, at least not on the East Coast here in Canada. And so that's where I was like, oh, I want to learn, I want to expand myself more in that way. And so as a founder, it's a good opportunity to almost bridge those knowledge gaps that you have, but then also recognize in yourself, hey, I've heard what a CP or what a ICP is 10,000 times. I know what a sales pipeline is. I know what a product map is. Like, you don't need to do the accelerators that just go over the basics over and over again. And when I did like 7 accelerators in 1 year, I can easily pick like 4 of those accelerators that I didn't need to participate in. And the only benefit that I got truly was the community that I joined. And I'm so thankful for that community. But did I get anything from the content? Did I expand myself in the content? No, not really. Was it nice to have that refresher? Yeah. Definitely. Because sales changes regularly, there's new tools that are coming out. So it's nice to hear how other founders are bridging gaps that I might not have thought of yet. And that was a really cool thing. But again, that's also community.
Yeah.
And so for me, be really strategic, because recognizing, like before, your time is free, and this value exchange with yourself in an accelerator, they need you to be a part of this accelerator to show their funders that, oh, we have these amazing, impactful businesses. So they need you. And for accelerators, you need them if it serves you. If it doesn't serve you, don't waste your time, because you could be putting that time into completing your data room, doing another deliverable, having another customer conversation. Or I would 10 times do a customer conversation over an accelerator any day, because those customer conversations are actually going to move your validation forward. An accelerator might give you a really strong template. Like, I remember our financial templates, our data room templates, like those were all through accelerators. But the way that I created our acquisition strategy, that was all me. And so recognizing, where can I have my strengths? Like I mentioned, own your goodness, your strength, and then fill those gaps with the resources that are free.
Yeah. And then quickly too, I want to pick your brain about this because I remember when we were starting our tech company, like all we could think about was like, how do we get investment? Because like we're not getting paid, to do any of this. And then like there's a lot of stuff that you're doing that like low key requires help. Like, neither of us were like technical. And so we had like a lot of consultants and we had like a dev team, and none of them are getting paid because we don't have money to pay them to help us, but we need them to help. And so the whole time, like any of our agreements that we had with them were like equity based for like, when we pop off, like you'll get the money, or like when we get funding, like, we'll give you the money. And so then like so much of your mind is just like, fuck, when can we get money from investors? And I'm like wondering if, like how was that for your experience? Like what were you thinking about? Like, is there a way to sort of reframe that so you're not just thinking about that? Is that like, you know what I'm saying? Because it was like a stressful time. It's hard to get investors. Like it's not easy.
No, and think about it's similar. If anyone has ever remembered like back when you're 2 and you want something at the grocery store and you're like, Mom, I want this at the grocery store. And she's just like, we have that at home. Or she's just like, no, you don't need that. Like every reason under the sun to say no to you. And you're like, I just want this. That's the same kind of mentality with an investor, but with like 17,000 different kids coming to them at the same time, asking them for a candy bar. And when we look at it that way, you're like, okay, I'm trying to play in that space. And for me, I'm playing the space that genuinely doesn't normally see a woman like me succeed. And I know that the investor I'm talking to has probably thousands of other people asking them for the same amount of money. It's overwhelming, confusing. And again, it's so uncomfortable to be like, please, sir, I just would like. It's so uncomfortable, especially when there's this whole movement of like, be a boss, babe, and like own your stuff. And you're just like, I literally have nothing to own. I just want a couple coins. So yeah, literally there's none. And so the realness of that is just like, yeah, you are very uncomfortably asking for money. And a lot of the time you won't have anything to show with it. There's a lot of statistics that prove investment an investor would give money to a founder without a lot, but then when you pull back the curtains and you pull back the hype, it's because someone has a connection somewhere and knows so and so from so and so, and that's how that happened. It doesn't just naturally. It doesn't organically, I should say, it doesn't organically just like you show up at a pitch, you knock it out of the woods, and someone's just going to be $1 million. Like Oprah's not sitting in the background being like, and you get a car. Like it's not the same way. As much as the hype success stories want us to think, it's something happening in the background. And that pitch competition was a formality or was kind of that checkbox. Like, okay, they showed up, like, let's give them that $1 million because we've been talking to them for 6 months. And when you think about the concept of relationship building, like we were talking about before, that value exchange, that investor is looking at how can I 10x my money if I invest into you? Or how am I going to get my money back in 10 months to then go and invest somewhere else to quadruple my money again? It's a value exchange in a way that you have to show up with so much value that matches with your ask, and then make them feel confident enough in your ability to deliver whatever deliverables that you need to within 12 to 18 months. And once people start to realize the runway that they have and the velocity that they have to grow, it's, again, uncomfortable. It's like take a shot every time Irene says uncomfortable. But like truly, it's almost like unhuman kind of concept because you're already going a million miles a minute and then you get investment and then you're like, great, I can pay people, I can do this, but you're also now committed to answering to the deliverables of someone that just handed over a bag. And so can you keep up with that? And that's why a lot of entrepreneurs are like, I don't want to actually go the VC route. I don't want to get that angel investment. I actually want to go a different way. That way I can have onus in the way that I can grow. And so those are also conversations I encourage people to have with their founders of like, can we even sustain this? Like, are we going to be in the dark tunnel when we see that dashboard and our user dips by 15%, are we going to be in the trenches calling people and getting our user count up for our investment board meeting? Or am I going to be floating trying to figure it out? These are real questions that we got to ask ourselves. But going back to it, it's awkward. It's not easy. And especially knowing, like, for us, we had staff and every single person, it was like, you have X amount of equity that we gave, and we would allocate that upon investment or when we hit 50K MRR. And that was my way of saying, either if we get investment, great. But if we can grow in our own pace and we hit this milestone, you'll also be rewarded. Because I don't like the feeling of being rushed. I'm a Taurus. So you rush me, I'm not moving anywhere. If I could take my own path, that was my way of doing that. But I was also very transparent with my staff in letting them know this is what the roadmap looks like. And because they weren't getting paid, I'm like, I'm okay. If you want to walk away, I understand, because everyone's got responsibilities. And as a founder, you just have to kind of be ready for someone to just be like, I got another opportunity, Irene. I'm so sorry. I got to go. And that's happened. Like, turnovers happen so often in my staff, but it's about, okay, we have a new gap. How can we come in to fix that gap? Where can I get the resources to fix that gap? And I hope that I could be a support or a resource for that person another time in their life. And that's kind of a living uncomfortability that you just have to live with as you're a founder.
Yeah, that's really, I love this through line of like microdosing adversity, like becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's also like the beauty of being an entrepreneur. Like, you are growing at such a rapid pace as a human being. And that's like, I just think it's a different personality. Like, you are just built different because like you love the challenge. And I was actually just thinking about it, like sitting here now, like we love to prove to ourselves that we can do the hard things.
And every day.
Yeah. And like, we really ride this line between like hustle culture is like way over here, you know, and then like everybody else is like way over there. And so we sort of like ride this line in the middle where like we can see where hustle culture gets it right, but we also know where they get it wrong. And like 100%. We can't be normal because we like the challenge. It's not us. You know, it's not. But at the end of the day, like we are like addicted to perseverance. It is like a drug to us. The feeling like you have pushed through and accomplished something that like nobody else was going to mean. It is. I mean, it's like a drug. Like, we are literally addicted to perseverance. And like, even for myself in like the smallest ways, like I was sick this week, but like I've done like 3 interviews this week. I literally like still doing my full-time job. And I was like, I don't want to contribute to hustle culture and be like, look at what I did, you know? But like, because I did rest. Like, I did take time to rest and like I did all the things that no, literally didn't leave the house for a whole week. But like, I feel fucking great about that. Like, I feel good about having like persevered and pushed through and like done the hard things. And it's been so refreshing to hear your experience, because like I think you've been through so much challenge and like so much change. But I would love for you to also talk about like how that's grown you as a person. Like, what are your silver linings? Like, what it makes it all worth it for you?
What it makes it all worth it for me? I think it goes back to my belief in myself. Because at the beginning, you're like, I don't really know if anything is, there's a lot of unknown. You're kind of walking in an unknown. And I remember my father calling me one day and I was just like, this is all the things happening, it's so exciting. He goes, that's great. What's next? And I literally was just stopped myself and I was like, I just did so much. What do you mean what's next? What do you mean? That was all of it. I did it. And I just paused and I was like, I don't know. Let me just go talk to God and see what he has in store. I don't know. Because you, as an entrepreneur, you don't know. And I think there's also now this comfort that I feel knowing that I'm about to traverse into an unknown situation. Like, if something crazy happens to my business tomorrow, I know that I'm going to be able to pick myself up, look at the world around me and be like, I'm going to start another business because I've been starting businesses and I can keep going. And that in itself is something no one can take that away from me. Once you've built and you built it successfully and you know how to do validation and you know where to find the yeses and you know how to sell and you know how to market and you're confident on your finances and your legal and you have that, like, I wear those scars with pride because I'm like, I know who I am now and I can go and do it again and I can do it again. And that's something that I own now. Whereas before I was like, I'm an entrepreneur. I graduated with that.
Shedding a single tear.
Right? It's like, yeah, I could do it. But it's like, no, I know I can do it. And there's this confidence that you build, that's unwavering confidence that no one can kind of shake that. And I lean on the quote that's like, those that are trying to shake you, trying to judge you, are those that haven't walked in the journey that you've walked. And so, like, other folks in my friend group, in like my founder cohort, we would always cheer people on. And throughout my journey as a founder, there are those people that want to say, like, I'm doing it wrong or I'm not going to succeed. They will try to tear you down because just naturally judgment and insecurity tries to come for those that are excelling. And so when those moments come, just recognizing, like, they're saying that because they haven't experienced what I've experienced. But the people that know it's the hard work, they will never want to put you, an actual founder will never put another founder down because they know the journey. And so now, thinking back of myself, I'm just like, this is part of, I was talking to someone and they said, when we're sitting on the chair with Oprah, this is going to be all part of the story. So it's like
all the time.
Yeah. This is all part of the story. So I'm happy with it now. Or at least finding happiness with it now.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm so glad you said that. I think about that all the time where I'm like, this is going to be such a great nugget of like information to share. Like when somebody wants to talk to me about my experience and my journey, like I'm going to file this under interview fodder for later.
Yeah.
And like also like
development added.
Yeah. And I think also like this is going to be so nerdy, but I think it's why I love like reading fantasy so much because I think founders, like, at least for myself, speaking for myself here, but like I see myself so much in those characters. Like, sure, I'm not being like tortured or like I'm not going to war, but like it feels like that, you know? Some days it feels like you read these books and you see them go through all of these challenges and like how that differentiates themselves from everybody else in the book. And like you see how they develop relationships and like how they accomplish their goals and like what they have to do to get that. And it always reminds me of that quote that's like, everybody is jealous of what you had, but they're not jealous of what you had to do to get that. Exactly. And I think the founder experience ties into that so well because like everybody loves to look at the unicorns and be like, wow, look at what they did. But we all have to go through the same process to get there.
Same thing.
The difference is like perseverance through the hard to get to the good stuff at the other end. And you have small wins along the way that you have to accept and learn to celebrate as equally as the big milestones, because otherwise you'll go crazy.
Definitely.
But all of that is to say that like we are all doing the hard things and like without a lot of proof that it's going to work. And I think that's kind of like in a weird, like masochistic way, really fun.
Yes. No, it is, because I think back to the year, and even with me not contributing anymore to the tech startup, I still look back at it and I remember the highlights and I remember the joys that it brought. And I remember also the days where like, I spent like hours 4 days in a row just in meetings, or like I spent 30 hours straight in an airport because my flight was delayed, all for that startup, and I had no food, no money, and I was just like sleeping on the counter. Like it was terrible. But I was like, I look back at it and I was like, haha, remember that moment I like flew for the company and like I had nothing to eat for 24 hours? Like, haha. And like you literally feel like you're in war because my body's hungry, my brain's exhausted, like 16 miles away from home. But I'm at this place for my company that I'm working with. So it sounds so backwards. When I hear it now and I laugh at it now, I'm just like, no, that's psychotic, Irene. But you're in the moment, you're like, look how hard I work. Look at my resilience.
And then you're like,
there.
yeah, but you're like, I did it. And now I know that I can do so much more after that.
And like that was something now, well, I'll also know I will never not travel without a credit card. But I will also, I know that if I get stuck in a bad place, I can get myself out of that. And there's no one that's going to be able to take that power away from me. And I know too, through this, where I find joy in my life. Because in building your company, you're building yourself. Because you're finding new parts of yourself that either are uncomfortable, that you're like, oh, I've never had to do this before. I've never had to make human resource policies or understand like leave. I never had to do that. I've always been an employee. And so, or even like, oh, someone's just had a really uncomfortable situation with another staff. I need to go mediate that. That's uncomfortable, but that's also building myself as a leader. Like I have those notches under my belt of like how to navigate people, how to navigate product development, how to navigate a business. And those are notches that I'm like, I'm proud to be able to do that because there's some people that can't and also some people that won't. So it's like that in itself. Like if you get to that point, be proud of what you can do.
What a perfect mic drop. Thank you so much for being here. This was such a fun conversation. And I really appreciate you sharing your expertise and your wisdom. And that's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. You can find all the links to connect with Irene in the show notes. If you feel called to support this podcast, please leave a review. That's always the most impactful. And if you're looking for more, I would be deeply honored if you wanted to just buy me a matcha. The link is below. And if you enjoyed this episode and are looking for more before the next one drops, please dive into The Well on Substack. There you'll find more founder wisdom and essays on entrepreneurship, and I'll have that linked in the description also. But in the meantime, I'll see you guys next week.